This video was made with support from my patrons, whose names are on screen now. If you want to, you can join them today and even get access to exclusive content. The link to my Patreon is in the description, so check it out if you're interested. Anyway, on with the show. Gran Turismo memes are not funny. Which is exactly why they're so funny. The thing is though, from looking at these memes from the GT community, a lot of them don't really make any sense, even if you're very familiar with the games. But saying that would somewhat be missing the point. Part of the reason why these memes became so memorable is the fact that they exist in the first place. I think Dustin Eden said it the best in the sense that Gran Turismo often takes itself so seriously that any abnormality that's picked up on can then be memed very easily, no matter how mundane it seems by regular meme standards. I mean, who looks at, say, a car spinning in the dealership and thinks, now this has potential?
I will now perform my people's native dance.
Well, someone did. And that's really the beauty of Gran Turismo memes, whether it's a popular meme format with GT applied to it, a music mashup, a shitpost, cursed images, or even meme mods for the games themselves. In fact, looking at so many of these memes whilst doing research for this video, I was even inspired to make my own. The link will be on screen if you're interested in that. But an element that I've always been really fascinated by is the cars within Gran Turismo that become memes. Gran Turismo has featured literally thousands of cars over the years, but only a specific few ever get the privilege of becoming memes. This can come in many forms. Some are fairly self-explanatory, and others can just seem like innocuous cars that aren't really out of place in a game like Gran Turismo. And that's where I come in. Today we're going to take a look at these cars, understand their meme origins, and provide a bit of context to their existence within Gran Turismo. So, buckle the fuck up, because you're gonna need to. We're really starting off swinging, aren't we? The Daihatsu Midget comes under a specific tier of meme cars, which I like to call Just Look At It. So named because, well, you can see why. Beyond just its looks, this K-Truck has the performance to back it up. 33 of your finest BHP, and 0 to 60 miles an hour in eventually. Yeah, beyond being one goofy boy, there really isn't a lot to the Daihatsu Midget being a meme. But the story doesn't end there. The Daihatsu Midget, despite its appearance, actually has a fairly decent legacy within Gran Turismo, first featuring back in Gran Turismo 2 and appearing in 4 more games after that. Here are some fun facts courtesy of the Gran Turismo wiki. In GT2, the Midget is the least powerful, fully upgraded car in the game with 66 brake horsepower. That may not sound like much, but when you consider that is double its stock horsepower, that's actually pretty impressive. One of the Midget's most distinctive features is that it's technically a pickup truck. Despite this, back in Gran Turismo 4, it for some reason was not allowed entry to the sports truck race. My guess is that Polyphony were worried it would be too overpowered and would easily blast past the Toyota Tacomas and Ford F-150s. The good news is that in Gran Turismo 5, it is allowed entry in the pickup truck challenge. So, go out there and have some fun on the Daytona Super Speedway. That can't go wrong. The Midget is also notable for being one of the cheapest cars in Gran Turismo history. In GT4, you could find it in the used dealers for just over $3,000. What a bargain. Also worth mentioning that it's even had a couple of one-make race events. Firstly, the incredibly named Midget Contest from GT2, and then again in GT4 with the Midget 2 race. Your prize for winning that event? The original Daihatsu Midget from 1963. This model sadly only appeared in GT4, much like the Benz patent motor wagon, and just like the Benz, it had only 3 wheels. This meant it was classed as a special car and so couldn't be used in any events. This is also the most likely reason why it didn't return for GT5 and beyond. Still, you can always go back to GT4 to enjoy its 12 brake horsepower performance and 0 to 60 time of never. The second car in our Just Look At It category is the Chrysler Phaeton, or according to Gran Turismo, the Dodge Chrysler Phaeton. Again, just visually speaking, it's not hard to understand why this one became a meme. Wow. Just wow. But aside from that, in every other sense, it's pretty much the exact opposite of the Midget, a massive V12 barge which should never go within 10 miles of a racetrack. But despite that, it's actually surprisingly fast. Like the Midget, it did also debut on GT2, but to date that's been its only appearance in the series, so it doesn't have much of a legacy beyond the meme. If you want to, you can obtain it by winning the 3rd race of the Muscle Car Cup. I appreciate Polyphony's sense of humour. You know, for all the talk about the GT4 randomizer that recently came out, who really needs it when you have GT2? The best randomizer. No mods required. We're going back to Daihatsu and the world of K-cars. The Daihatsu Copen is the first specific event meme car. That is to say, it's a meme because of one specific event that it appears in, that being the first coffee break event in the B license of GT4. Coffee breaks were small challenges placed in the middle of each license that were meant to be a fun distraction and break up the monotony of the license tests, but the joke is that they were often a lot harder and more frustrating than the tests themselves. Even though it only appears in the first one, the Copen has become the unofficial car of the coffee breaks. There were 5 of them in GT4, which involved either avoiding cones or deliberately knocking them down. They returned once more in GT6, where alongside the usual cone shenanigans, there were also eco challenges, where you had to drive a certain distance on limited fuel, and drift trials as well. But whenever anyone mentions coffee breaks, the first thought in any Gran Turismo fan's mind are the ones from GT4, and most likely the first one with the Copen. Given the cafe menu book disaster from GT7, you could argue at this point that Gran Turismo and cafe related things should never be put together. Although I've never been to the real life Gran Turismo cafe, so maybe that's the exception. So the Copen is pretty much a meme by circumstance. Other than that, it's a fairly unremarkable K sports car. But that isn't the whole story. With the release of GT Sport came a new Copen, the Copen RJ. RJ standing for Racing Jacket. Despite the goofy name, it is an interesting car, taking a second generation Copen and juicing it up to make a proper performance car. However, despite its appearance, it's actually a Vision GT car. This ultimately means that, like a lot of Vision GTs, it's ridiculously overpriced, has limited tuning, and no actual purpose within the game. What's interesting though is that unlike any other Vision GT, there was no trailer made for it, and in-game it didn't even have a description in GT Sport, making it one of, if not the only car in the game to not have one. Also, it appears as though the design wasn't even done by Daihatsu, but rather outsourced to another company. The car just seemed to appear from nowhere, a strange situation indeed. Although it's not often talked about, the Copen RJ is a meme in my heart at least. Also, can we mention how despite some K cars like the Copen being featured in the coffee breaks, the Suzuki Cappuccino has never been used in one, ever. That blew my mind. Maybe it was too obvious. If it ever had, I have no doubts in my mind that it would be the meme car to represent the coffee breaks instead of the Copen. All in all, I think Colorshed Productions summed up the situation the best when he said, "If I want a coffee break, I'll turn the game off." Never a truer word has been spoken before. And I don't even drink coffee. The second of our event-specific meme cars is the Mercedes SLR Mclaren. Alongside coffee breaks, GT4 also introduced driving missions, races for you to win under specific conditions. The final few of these were known as One Lap Magic, and involved your opponents driving slower cars and being given a head start, with your goal to overtake them in the limited time available. The last driving mission in GT4 is Mission 34, where you're tasked with overtaking various other Mercedes models in the SLR. This mission is infamous for its difficulty, with a fairly strict time limit and taking place at the Nürburgring Nordschleife, the longest and most difficult track in the game. That alone is a recipe for frustration and is why many people consider it to be one of the toughest events in Gran Turismo history. But it gets worse. You see, the lead car, a Mercedes 300 SL, is given a more than 2-minute head start, and like all the other One Lap Magic missions, you have to sit there and wait in real time, watching all the other cars leave the grid until it's finally your turn, meaning that if you make a mistake and have to restart, it's a more than 2-minute wait until you get your next attempt. It's excruciating and incredible that no one at Polyphony saw this as a problem. In fact, in Gran Turismo 7, where the One Lap Magic missions return, they still make you sit through the full countdown, proving that they learnt exactly nothing. And yes, in case you're wondering, we are going to sit here and watch the full countdown. No, I'm not just padding for time. I believe that it's important so that you can understand the true pain and suffering of every person who's had to do the same thing when restarting this mission. But that does mean I need to fill time. So, how's it going? Are you enjoying the video so far? It's been a lot of fun for me to make, so if you are, please leave a like and subscribe if you want to see more. So, yeah, what have you been up to? I just finished playing through GT3 a couple of weeks ago, you might have seen. That was a lot of fun. Now I'm going to play through all the other games, starting with GT1. So that's going to be a good time, until I get to this mission in GT4 anyway. Yeah, I've been meaning to fully play through them all for a while now, but but now making videos, I pretty much have to for some of the stuff I've got planned in the future. So, yeah, stay tuned for those. That's sure to be exciting. Don't know what more to say. What did I have for lunch? Yeah, I had a cheese sandwich for lunch. That was good. It's what I normally have. You know, it's quick and easy. Easy, simple, fills me up. You know, on white bread. Not a fan of brown bread. You know, wholemeal. That's not. Doesn't me and wholemeal don't really get along. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have most days, to be honest. You know, same thing really. Okay, let's race. That was pretty painful, but the good news is that if you were playing on the PAL version, the mission is a bit easier, as instead of waiting 123 seconds, you've only got to bear a mere 115 seconds. How generous. Okay, now this is where things start to get interesting. Gran Turismo memes are a relatively new concept. Sure, cars like the Daihatsu Midget were always joked about, but these ideas were never as widespread as they are today through internet memes. For my money, the first true Gran Turismo meme to originate within the game itself is the Pink Vitz. Just a note, in PAL regions, the Toyota Vitz is known as the Toyota Yaris. As the meme is Pink Vitz, I'll be referring to it as the Vitz. So this meme dates all the way back to 2011, predating the current Gran Turismo meme era, which started in around 2018-2019. A YouTuber by the name of Rhino GT4 was doing a playthrough of Gran Turismo 3. During this playthrough, he encountered the Pink Vitz. Then he encountered another Pink Vitz. And then another. And then, finally, its brother, the Cyan Vitz. What made this so funny was his initial reaction to seeing the Pink Vitz for the first time.
Ew. It's pink. It's a Toyota Vitz. It's pink. Why is it pink?
It's almost as if the game was punishing him for that. If I'm being honest, I don't mind the Pink Vitz. I think this shade of pink is alright. Of course, Rhino doesn't, which is why this meme got so much traction. I can't imagine the Cyan Vitz meme taking off in the same way, for example, but it's not really about that. It's more what the Pink Vitz represents. To take this slightly off topic, I've said many times that GT3 is my favourite Gran Turismo, and that's true, but like many things, it's not perfect. What I find funny is how the Pink Vitz meme is related in some way to every major issue I have with GT3. Let me explain. So the first way, and only guaranteed way of getting the Pink Vitz, is the Beginner League FF Challenge. This taps into one issue with GT3 already, which is that to begin with, it doesn't really feel like you're making much progress, since the prize cars you often get are worse than the car you would need to have to win the event anyway, such as in this case. But at least you can then use it for the Beginner Vitz Race Championship. But upon winning that championship, your 4 possible prize cars are all the Toyota Vitz, the car you would already need to have to even enter the championship. And one of those 4 possible Vitz is the Pink Vitz, which you probably would already have. Special colour prize cars were always a thing in the first 4 Gran Turismos. Since cars couldn't be repainted, there would be certain special colour variants that could be won from various events. GT3 has a few of them, but somehow there are 4 special colour variants of the Vitz. Why? Who would want these? And this is why there are so many opportunities to win the Vitz, so that you have the chance to collect every special colour. In the Amateur League, you then have a 2 out of 4 chance of winning one of them from the Altezza Championship as well. Then we get to the Professional League. One of the big issues with the Professional League is the number of one-make championships, long 10-lap races with fairly slow cars. And wouldn't you know it, the Vitz race is back again. And not only that, but out of the 5 races, 3 of them take place at the 3 longest tracks in the game: Grand Valley, Special Stage Route 11, and the Test Course Oval. It's almost deliberately torturous. And after all of that, you still have a 1 out of 4 chance to win another special colour Vitz, which happened in my playthrough as well.
Well, at least it's not pink.
Unbalanced prize cars is another big issue with GT3 and is certainly not exclusive to the Vitz race, and that's how old Rhino ended up with his 4 Toyota Vitz. Seems like they overestimated how enthused people would be with this mundane economy car. who could have seen that coming? Personally, I like to put my Pink Vitz on a set of Ray's Vesta strawberry wheels. It really completes the look if you ask me. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Can I get Pink Vitz in any other games? Well, sort of. In GT4, the Vitz race returns as a 5-race event, and your prize car, a special colour orange Vitz. The Vitz race is also in GT5, but gives you a Prius for winning in both A-Spec and B-Spec. It's not much better, but at least they learnt their lesson. So, another specific car, specific colour meme, so I guess the origin is something similar to the Pink Vitz, right? Haha, no. I know it might upset some people, but the truth is that the Yellow Evo meme has very little to do with the Yellow Evo. It's all about the song, which is Mirage by Daiki Kasho. Kasho went on to compose many more songs for Gran Turismo, but as far as I can tell, this was actually the first song he composed to ever feature in the series. Albeit not the first to feature in a Polyphony digital game, because he did jointly compose a song for Omega Boost, Polyphony's 3D mecha shooter. The reason I say this is the first of his songs in Gran Turismo is because it's the title track of GT2000. In case you didn't know, GT2000 was the working title of GT3, originally shown off in late 1999. The estimated release date of December 2000 came and went, and so did the name GT2000, since it wouldn't really make sense anymore. On a side note, I like to imagine what would have happened if they actually released GT2000. Would every other GT game after that have the year in the title as well, or would they go back to numbers? Would that make GT4 GT3, and so on? Weird to think about. Anyway, GT2000 did still exist as a limited time demo, and the intro to this demo is where the meme comes from. In terms of who popularized the meme, that honor of course goes to BK4, who I'm sure many of you will already be aware of for his posting prowess, and I'm sure this won't be the last time I mention him. In his original video, he effectively uses the song as a jump scare, which makes sense given that listening to that initial part of the song is like being punched in the face. Mirage also appeared in the full release of GT3 alongside 4 more songs by Kasho. Although I like these songs and have good memories of them, I'd be lying if I said I could tell my strike breakers apart from my skyscrapers. Other than Mirage, they all seem to occupy the same space in my brain. They may be a bit too generic sounding, but at least fit the theme of GT3 very well. But the game of GT2000 is a weird one. It looks like GT3, but everything's just a little bit off. Maybe GT 2.5. In my mind, it really does feel like a completely different game rather than just an early version of GT3. What I haven't mentioned yet is the track, Seattle Circuit, the only circuit available in the demo. Does it add to the meme? Maybe. It's got those jumps and the whole sunset aesthetic, so it's possible, but like I say, I think the Yellow Evo itself is just incidental. Personally, I prefer to live in the timeline where it's the blue Skyline meme, or the red RX-7 meme. Yeah, it's all about the song, and it's my view that it would have become a meme either way. With my videos, I like to rationalize things, think them through to their logical conclusions. With memes like these, you can try, as I have done, but it's not really gonna work. Because frankly, if you just switch your brain off, stuff like this makes a lot more sense. In a return to the just look at it meme format, we have the Toyota Pod. Although that's not the full story. Yes, the pod is funky looking, but it's more interesting than that. It has emotions. Well, an emotion system. It has 4 emotions, which are represented by LED lights on its body, which change in 4 colours. Cyan for neutral, yellow for happy, blue for sad, and red for angry. The emotions change based on the player's driving, such as overtaking cars, crashing, etc. It also has a rear antenna that acts like a tail, moving around based on its emotion, and it plays a sound tone for every emotion change. Yeah, it's not hard to see why this one's a meme. A car with emotions. Who asked for this? I'd argue one of the best things about cars is that they don't have emotions, apart from the ones that we put onto them. They don't go around saying, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm angry, and that's probably for the best. But at least that gives the pod its meme potential. So the pod only featured in one game, Gran Turismo Concept, a short game released in Asia and Europe based on GT3 that focused on showcasing then new concept cars. And not only that, but the pod is so far the only car in the series to have its own dedicated circuit, unless you include the Lunar Rover from GT6, which I don't. Pod Race, as it's known, is a very short circuit built using part of the front straight and pit lane of Special Stage Route 5, and only the Toyota pod can be driven on it. Interestingly though, Special Stage Route 5 itself is not playable in Gran Turismo concept, only Pod Race. It's a fairly simple track made of 2 hairpin turns, but does feature curbs to make chicanes and even has a big ramp. However, the gimmick of Pod Race is that just before the ramp, you have to come to a full stop and put your handbrake on before you're allowed to continue. If you don't and take the ramp at full speed, you end up disqualified. Classic Polyphony not letting us have fun. Pretty much everything about the pod and Pod Race is weird, and I guess that's kind of the point. When you look at it like that, it was inevitable that this would end up as a meme despite its relative obscurity. Anyway, all that's left to say is...
Now this is pod racing!
The meme of the GT40 road car goes by a few names. Some call it the Cheat T40, or He's There / He's Not There. But what am I talking about? So this one is another event-specific meme, but the twist is that rather than the meme being the car the player is driving, it's one of the opponents instead. This one takes us back to GT2, and specifically the historic Car Cup race at Rome circuit. So with GT2, a lot of events had horsepower limits for which cars can be used. For this race in particular, it's 295 brake horsepower. The GT40 has 305. Yeah, so 10 bhp over. The crazy thing is though that the GT40 is by far not the worst cheater in the game. In fact, within the same event, there is an even bigger cheater. At the Grindelwald race, you'll sometimes come up against the Corvette Stingray, which is a whopping 39 brake horsepower over the limit. So why is the GT40 a meme but the Corvette isn't? Well, simply that even with its massive power advantage, the Corvette still isn't very fast and can easily be outclassed by less powerful cars at a technical track like Grindelwald. The GT40 on the other hand is pretty much just the race car with a bit less power and no livery. And it's not just about power, it has bags of cornering ability thanks to its downforce and is miles faster than any other AI opponents in the same race. Again, BK4 popularised the cheating GT40 as a meme through his videos titled He's There and He's Not There, which are fairly self-explanatory. If you want to know more about the cheating AI cars in GT2, I'd recommend MattJ155's video on the topic, because if you think the GT40's bad, you ain't seen shit. How about the AI breaking what's physically possible with tuning to have more powerful versions of the same cars than players are ever allowed to? Really? The good news is that the GT40 is not a guaranteed opponent in the race, so if you get it, just exit out and re-enter until it's not there. Simple. Makes you wonder why this is even a meme in the first place. Who knew the GT community was such a bunch of drama queens? I was reluctant to call this one a meme, but I think it deserves it. The Suzuki Escudo Pikes Peak is iconic to Gran Turismo, and very few people would even know about it if it weren't for these games. Debuting once again in GT2, it is featured in 6 more games after that, most recently being added to Gran Turismo 7 in an update. In GT2, it featured alongside its predecessor, the Suzuki Cultus Pikes Peak, and the track it was designed for, the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb. The car itself is a beast. Almost 1000 horsepower, insane aero, and a mid-engine 4-wheel drive layout means that it boasts ridiculous performance both on dirt and tarmac. In GT2, it was known as the all-round fastest car in the game, and although it was never quite as dominant in the later titles, it was still in the top tier of performance alongside many Le Mans prototypes. That's all well and good, but how can it be considered a meme? Well, if we go back to GT3, the Escudo was the subject of maybe the most infamous glitch in Gran Turismo history, known as either the 2,147,483,647 speedometer glitch, or simply just the wheelie glitch. This was a bug in which the car could be set up in a way to cause it to wheelie and confuse the physics engine into thinking the car was continuously falling, and thus allowing it to accelerate infinitely. Combining this with an out-of-bounds glitch, most notably at Seattle Circuit, meant that the car could reach the aforementioned speed before the game would crash. It's worth noting the glitch can also be performed with a Toyota GT1 race car, but it's most commonly associated with the Escudo. Although it's mostly just for fun, it does have its uses, such as in races at the test course where it can achieve some incredible speed and leave all the opponents in the dust. Adding to its mythical status was that when the car was added to GT7 in June 2022, it came with another glitch. This one was far more frustrating, because it prevented the car from appearing in the Legend Cars dealership beyond its initial run. So if you didn't get it back in June or July 2022, you were screwed. The good news is that they did fix this, a mere 9 months later, but the bug still exists for another car in the same update, the 1932 Ford Roadster. Great work, Polyphony. So even though the Escudo was designed for the dirt, its biggest legacy in Gran Turismo will always be on the asphalt. Here's a fun fact about the real car. Despite the version featured in Gran Turismo always being the 1998 model, with the version from GT2 having some details taken from the 1996 car, it only won Pikes Peak on 2 occasions, its debut in 1995 and its final event in 2006. Also, the version of Pikes Peak which featured in GT2 was a much shortened version of the real-life course. So we've got the car, but what about the track that goes with it? Over the years, there have been numerous rumours about the Pikes Peak hill climb returning to Gran Turismo. In 2010, just after the release of GT5, the official Red Bull blog even stated that it was already in the game. Despite this clearly not being true, bizarrely in 2019, it was discovered that the original Pikes Peak from GT2 was hidden within GT5. Of course, it was still using PS1 textures, and a lot of them were missing, but this shows that it's possible Pikes Peak was planned to be included in GT5 at some point. Also, in 2017, it was confirmed that Gran Turismo has the exclusive rights to use Pikes Peak. This came after its inclusion in 2015's Dirt Rally, and then sudden disappearance from that series. It has to be assumed that this license is still in place due to Pikes Peak not featuring in any other game since, and despite Gran Turismo even sponsoring the real-life Pikes Peak hill climb, it is still yet to return even 6 years after this revelation. Exclusivity deals in racing games are never good. Gran Turismo knows this very well, but to not even use the content you have sole access to is downright disgraceful. GT7 also now features the Volkswagen IDR, the current overall record holder at Pikes Peak, but until the track itself is added, these cars don't have much to do. In the case of the Escudo, it's now a fallen giant that doesn't have any real purpose within GT's modern group system. Maybe it can return to glory one day, but for now we can only hope. Let's take a trip back to GT4's license center. We've talked about coffee breaks, but what about the tests themselves? The most infamous of these have to be the one-lap guide runs, a type of license test which has never returned to the series. There's quite a few of these, but the one that most people will point to as the definitive reason why the Skyline pace car is a meme is the final one, IA15. Just like Mission 34, it's a full lap of the Nordschleife in a Mercedes, the 190e Evo 2. These guide runs are just like regular time trials, except you have the pace car running in front of you for the whole lap. Don't hit the pace car, don't overtake the pace car. Simple enough in theory, but in practice it's a different story. The key is to match yourself with the pace car, braking roughly when it does and using the same racing lines. The difficulty is that you have to remember all of this for a 9-minute lap. And if you misjudge even one braking zone, which is very easy to do given how inconsistent the AI can sometimes be, then it's back to the start. But at the same time, you can't back off too much because you still need to beat the target time. There is a reason why a lot of people consider this to be the hardest test in GT4, harder than anything in the Super license. Many GT4 players have even reported having nightmares featuring the pace car. I haven't fact-checked that, but it's probably true. Did you know the pace car actually debuted in GT Concept, where it had a similar purpose in the course license mode? Although in this case it was optional, and colliding with it or overtaking it didn't result in a failure. Coincidentally, completing all of the course licenses is how you unlock the pod race. In real life, a Nissan Skyline has been used as an actual pace car, albeit the previous generation R33, which was famously the official pace car at the 1997 24 Hours of Le Mans. Also, the Skyline which isn't a Skyline, the 300 GT, was the official safety car at Sportsland Sugo in Japan for a few years in the early 2000s. Like I said, these guide run tests never returned to Gran Turismo, but the Skyline pace car did, although at this point it didn't really serve much purpose and was just kind of carried forward forward from GT4 into 5 and 6. However, in GT Sport, many pace cars were included, even an R35 GTR to replace the Skyline. But outside of a few pre-release trailers where they were used to lead the field for rolling starts, these pace cars once again didn't have any functional use in the game. Now in GT7 it's the same situation, so although the pace cars now just exist as a novelty, we all remember that one time when it was so much more important. For better or for worse. Now this one is a little bit more obscure than the rest, but an excellent meme nonetheless. Another specific car in a specific colour, and another completely different origin. This Impreza, which is a fictional Impreza rally car, rather than the fully licensed real-life version, only appeared in GT1 and 2, and alongside the traditional Impreza Blue, also had a black variant. Some may look at it and consider it a cursed car due to this unlikely livery combination, but that's not what this is about. You see, the Black Impreza became well known due to a video released last year by Matt J155, the Gran Turismo Iceberg. Definitely check it out if you haven't already, because it's excellent and there's tons of cool information in there. The Black Impreza is actually the last entry in his Iceberg and centers around some official footage of the original Gran Turismo in which the car can be seen at Trial Mountain. Whoever was tasked with driving it though was clearly not very good at the game. The car can be seen spinning out, crashing into almost everything, and at one point it cuts to the car just flying through the air for seemingly no reason. It's amazing. In his video, Matt mentions that this footage comes from the Gran Turismo 3 Le Mans press kit, which is true, and he's made a video showing that off as well, but its origins go back a bit further than that. This video was actually a pre-release trailer made to advertise GT1 back in 1997, and beyond just the Impreza, honestly the whole video is a complete mess. Made using mostly in-game replays, it features pretty consistently terrible driving, and even the replay HUD awkwardly appearing on screen for a few scenes. It also gives us the incredible tagline of over 10 tracks, GT1 had 11 tracks, by the way, and incredible detail just before the camera clips through the Castrol Supra. Truly a work of art. But despite all of that, it's still the Black Impreza that really steals the show. It's insane how they thought that a game which was billed as the real driving simulator should be advertised like this, showing off literally the most unrealistic things about it. We can say it's a bad advertisement, but the fact that I'm sitting here 26 years later still talking about it means that maybe they were actually onto something. The final car I want to talk about in this video is from the future. The future being last year, and last year according to our standards in 2004. Yeah, I get wanting to do a prediction of what car design may look like in the future, but making your prediction for only 18 years on is kind of setting yourself up for failure if you ask me. Even in the 1950s they gave themselves a good half a century, so that when they were inevitably wrong, it was at least understandable. Anyway, that's not the point. The point is that the Nike 1 is pretty well loved in the GT community, but how can this be the case when so many other concept cars of the same ilk, such as Vision GT cars, are sometimes forgotten almost instantly, despite being far more outlandish? Well, I'm going to discuss the Vision GT side of that argument another time, but as for the Nike, a big part of it is that it was the first concept car of this type, predating the countless Vision GTs and even stuff like the GT by Citroën. A car being designed collaboratively with a company especially for these games was a pretty radical idea back in 2004, especially when said company normally deals in clothing. And I have to say that the design, penned by Phil Frank, has a type of appeal which other similar concept cars, for example the Toyota Motor Triathlon race car, a car many of you will have forgotten entirely until I just mentioned it, simply don't have. Although it's rooted to two separate periods in time through its creation and its name, it feels somewhat timeless. Naturally, only being included in one game, GT4, has only helped add to that mystique. Even still, I'm sure I wasn't alone in playing GT4, unlocking this car, trying it out and then thinking that was cool and then never touching it again. So the question is, how did it manage to stay so relevant in GT meme culture? Well, in my view, it's almost entirely down to the name, Nike 1 2022. The amount of times in the past few years that I saw comments like, can't wait to drive this IRL in 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, and now negative 1 year, I guess, is immeasurable, really. And maybe that was their goal by setting the hypothetical release date in the not too distant future, just far enough to give it a futurism flavoured intrigue, but not too far so that it still maintains relevancy. Incredibly smart if that's actually true. Many Vision GTs since then have done the same thing, but there's no chance they'll be anywhere near as well remembered as the Nike. It was the original and there is no replacement. Even despite Vision GT cars being mostly disregarded, there have been countless cries for the Nike to return in GT7, and looking at the full picture, it's easy to understand why. What I wonder now is, where do we go from here? 2022 has come and gone, and obviously the Nike one isn't in production, but it hasn't returned to Gran Turismo either, and there's a good chance that it never will. If so, will the Nike continue to be relevant like it has for the past few years, or just fade into the background like so many other concept cars throughout the history of Gran Turismo? Well, we'll just have to wait and see. Meme cars in Gran Turismo. They come in all shapes and sizes, from JDM Legends to V12 limos, classic sports cars and quirky concepts. It seems nothing is off limits. These are the ones I really wanted to talk about and think are the most interesting, and hopefully I've been able to add a bit of context and help you understand these memes better. If there are any other meme cars which I didn't mention here, there's sure to be a few, then please let me know in the comments. But don't start your comment with "you forgot," because if you do that, I'll come down there and I'll personally kick you up the ass. So please don't. But anyway, memes are inside jokes, and as we all know, having to explain a joke always makes it less funny. So, am I justified in making this video?